The streets were quiet, just the occasional hum of passing cars and the distant chatter of people going about their day. Officer Jake Simmons sat in his patrol car, sipping his now lukewarm coffee, watching the world unfold in front of him. It was supposed to be a routine afternoon, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, out of nowhere, a little boy came running toward him. At first, Jake thought the kid had just tripped and fallen. His small frame shook, his face wet with tears, and his breathing was ragged, like he had been running for a while. But when the boy finally reached him, clutching at his uniform, his tiny fingers gripping the fabric like it was his only lifeline, Jake knew something was terribly wrong. "Officer, please help me," the boy sobbed, his voice barely above a whisper. His chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath, his words breaking between gasps. Jake immediately crouched down, putting a steady hand on the child's shoulder. Hey, slow down, buddy. You're safe now. What's going on? Are you hurt?" The boy shook his head violently, his whole body trembling. "No, but you have to come, please. He's still there." Jake's pulse quickened. He had been on the force for years and had seen all kinds of situations, but something about this kid's fear sent a chill down his spine. His eyes darted around, searching for any sign of danger, but the street looked normal. People walked by, cars moved along, nothing seemed out of place. But then, as Jake's eyes settled back on the little boy, he finally noticed it. The shirt. It was white. Well, it used to be. Now it was smeared with something dark. Something that sent a cold wave through Jake's body. His mind raced, his training kicking in. Was it dirt? Paint? His gut told him otherwise. Jake's mouth went dry. His hand instinctively moved to his radio. But before he could say anything, the boy grabbed his wrist, his tear-filled eyes pleading. "Please, officer. You have to hurry." Jake didn't hesitate. Whatever was going on, this kid was in serious distress. He wasn't just scared, he was terrified. And Jake had learned long ago to trust that kind of fear. Standing up, he took the boy's hand firmly in his own. "Okay, kid, show me where." With that, the little boy took off, leading him down the street, past familiar shops and houses, his small legs moving as fast as they could, and with every step, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to walk into something he wasn't prepared for. Something that would change everything. This introduction sets the tone with suspense and emotion while keeping it engaging. For the audience, let me know if you'd like any tweaks. Jake's boots hit the pavement hard as he followed the boy through the streets, his mind racing with possibilities. What had this kid seen? Was someone in danger? Was he in danger? The grip on his wrist was tight, too tight for a child his age. Whatever had happened, it had shaken him to his core. "Slow down, buddy," Jake said, trying to keep up without completely losing his breath. "Tell me what's going on. Who's still there?" But the boy didn't answer. He just kept running, leading Jake around a corner, past the local bakery, past the old gas station, until finally they reached the edge of a small alley tucked between two rundown apartment buildings. The air was different here, heavier, still. Even the usual city sounds seemed distant, muted, as if they didn't belong in this place. The boy came to a sudden stop, his chest rising and falling as he pointed toward the alleys. "In there," he whispered. Jake's heart pounded as he followed the boy's gaze. The alley wasn't completely empty. A few garbage bins lined the sides. A broken street lamp flickered above, casting just enough light to make out the outline of something or someone near the far end. "Stay here," Jake said firmly, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder before stepping forward. Every instinct in him was on high alert. His training had taught him that situations like this could turn unpredictable in an instant. He reached for his radio, but didn't call it in just yet. He needed to understand what he was walking into first. As he moved closer, he could make out more details. A figure, slumped against the wall, unmoving. A man. His clothes were disheveled, his head tilted downward, as if he had fallen asleep sitting up. But something was off. Jake's eyes trailed downward, and that's when he saw it. The same dark stains that covered the little boy's shirt were splattered across the man's clothing. The concrete beneath him, not fresh, but not old either. Jake crouched down, his hand hovering over his radio now. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response. His pulse quickened. He reached out carefully, pressing 2 fingers to the man's neck, searching for a pulse. And when he found it, faint, but there, he exhaled sharply. He was alive, but barely. "Buddy, who is this?" Jake turned back to the boy, who still stood frozen a few feet away, gripping his own arms like he was trying to hold himself together. "Do you know him?" The boy hesitated before nodding. "He's my dad." Jake's stomach twisted. His dad. He looked back at the man, suddenly seeing him in a different light. The stubble on his face, the worn-out clothes, the exhaustion in his features, even in unconsciousness. It painted a picture. One Jake had seen too many times before. He turned back to the boy. "What happened?" The boy swallowed hard. I woke up and he wasn't home. He's been sick and acting weird. He wouldn't wake up, and I got scared. So I ran to find help." Jake took a slow breath, processing. There were a lot of ways this situation could go, but right now, the most important thing was making sure this man got the help he needed. He pressed the button on his radio. "Dispatch, I need an ambulance at my location. Possible overdose. Male, mid-30s. Unresponsive but breathing. Young child present." The boy flinched at those words. Jake immediately softened his tone. "Hey, it's okay, kid. You did the right thing coming to me. Your dad's gonna get the help he needs." Tears welled up in the boy's eyes. "Is he gonna be okay?" Jake hesitated. He wanted to promise that everything would be fine, that his dad would wake up, take him home, and they'd go back to a normal life. But he'd been in this job long enough to know that wasn't always how these things worked. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice gentle but honest. "But I do know this. You're not alone in this. Okay, we're gonna figure this out." The boy sniffled, nodding slowly, as distant sirens finally cut through the heavy silence of the alley. Jake stood, his eyes still on the man slumped against the wall. He had seen plenty of tragedies in his time as an officer. But there was something about this one, something about the way the boy had run to him, the way he had clung to him in desperation, that stuck with him. Because this wasn't just about one man. This was about a child caught in something too big for him to understand. A kid who had run to the first person he thought could help because he had nowhere else to go. And that realization settled deep in Jake's chest. This wasn't just a call. This was something more, and it wasn't over yet. The wail of sirens grew louder, bouncing off the narrow walls of the alley as flashing red and blue lights painted the night. The little boy stood frozen, his small fingers still clenched into fists at his sides, as if bracing himself for what would happen next. Jake stayed beside him, offering what little reassurance he could with a steady presence. He knew this was about more than just getting the man medical help. This boy's life was about to change, and there was no easy way to prepare him for that. The ambulance pulled up, and within seconds, paramedics were rushing in. They worked quickly, checking the man's vitals, talking in clipped but calm voices. One of them looked up at Jake. "He's got a pulse, but it's weak. We need to move him now." Jake nodded. "Do what you have to do." The little boy took a step forward. "Can I come?" His voice was so small, so filled with hope, that it made Jake's chest ache. One of the paramedics hesitated, glancing at Jake for direction. Jake crouched down, leveling with the boy. "They need to take care of your dad right now. But listen, you're not alone, okay? We'll make sure you get to see him soon." The boy's lower lip quivered. "But what if he doesn't wake up?" Jake hesitated. He wished he had the right words, the ones that would erase the fear in the kid's eyes. But all he could do was tell the truth. "We're going to do everything we can, but no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. I promise." Tears spilled over the boy's cheeks, but he nodded, trusting Jake's words, even if he didn't fully understand them. As the paramedics lifted the man onto a stretcher, Jake turned his attention to the next problem. What would happen to the boy now? His mind was already running through the steps. Social services would need to be involved. If there were any family members nearby, they'd have to be contacted. But looking at the boy, standing there alone in the dim alley, Jake had a sinking feeling that there was no one else. A voice broke through his thoughts. "Officer Simmons." He turned to see another patrol officer approaching. It was Miller, one of the guys from his precinct. "Got a call from dispatch. Need me to take the kid?" Jake looked at the boy again. He saw the way his small hands twisted in his oversized sleeves, the way his eyes kept darting to his father, still unsure if he was truly safe. Jake knew the standard procedure. Miller would take him down to the station, wait for child services, and that would be that. But something about handing the boy off right now didn't sit right with him. "I got it," Jake said, surprising even himself. Miller raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" Jake nodded. "Yeah, I'll take him in." The boy looked up, confused. "Where are we going?" Jake offered him a small, reassuring smile. "Somewhere safe, and we'll check on your dad soon, okay?" The boy hesitated, then slowly reached for Jake's hand. His grip wasn't as desperate as before, but there was still a quiet plea in it. Jake squeezed back. The night was far from over, and there were still questions left unanswered. But as he led the boy toward his car, he knew one thing for certain. This kid had run out looking for help, and he wasn't going to be alone anymore.